In the quiet solitude of New York's Catskill Mountains, Hannah Mitchell never expected a wild visitor to knock at her door. Until one frozen winter morning, a desperate mother fox appeared, her amber eyes pleading silently for help. At her feet lay a tiny, injured kit fighting for its life. In that instant, Hannah knew her peaceful world would change forever, drawing her into an extraordinary journey of trust, courage, and redemption, proving that sometimes nature itself chooses us for its greatest miracles. In the early hours of a crisp November morning, the Catskill Mountains lay wrapped in a thick, silvery mist. The trees, stripped bare by autumn's retreat, stretched their skeletal branches toward an overcast sky, shrouded in the quiet solitude unique to the region. A soft drizzle drifted gently, dampening the fallen leaves into a tapestry of muted golds and russet browns. Hidden deep within this veil of mist stood a modest log cabin, smoke rising lazily from its stone chimney, signifying the presence of life amid the wilderness. Inside, Hannah Mitchell brewed a pot of strong coffee, its rich aroma blending seamlessly with the scent of pine and cedarwood. At 39, Hannah was a striking woman, tall and lean from years of mountain trekking, her figure athletic and graceful. Her chestnut brown hair, shot through with subtle streaks of silver, was habitually tied back in a loose ponytail, revealing clear, observant green eyes that always appeared to seek the stories hidden within the wilderness she so loved. She dressed practically, flannel shirts, rugged jeans, and sturdy hiking boots, but carried herself with the quiet elegance born from years in corporate offices. Hannah had once thrived in the concrete jungle of New York City, commanding boardrooms with her sharp intellect and meticulous preparation as a successful marketing director. However, beneath her polished facade simmered an unspoken yearning, an urge for freedom and connection to something deeper, wilder. The tragic loss of her husband, Jason, in a climbing accident 2 years earlier, had been the catalyst to finally embrace the solitude and introspection that nature provided. Trading the skyline of Manhattan for the sprawling wilderness, she had settled into her grandmother's cabin, determined to write and photograph the creatures of the Catskills, hoping to heal the unseen wounds that city life had deepened rather than mended. On that particular morning, as Hannah stepped onto the porch, steam curled gently from her coffee cup, mixing with the lingering mist. She inhaled deeply, savoring the crisp mountain air, her camera nestled securely against her hip. It had become her ritual to wait for dawn to gently disperse the fog, revealing glimpses of wildlife venturing out from their hidden shelters. That was when she saw Ruby for the first time. Emerging from the hazy edge of the forest was a delicate but cautious figure, a red fox, slender yet sturdy, its thick coat shimmering even in the muted light. The fox's fur glowed richly russet, fading gently to white at the paws and chest, with piercing amber eyes darting carefully from side to side. Ruby moved cautiously yet purposefully, each step precise, her ears erect, capturing every whisper from the woods. Hannah held her breath, not daring to move, mesmerized by this unexpected visitor. Slowly, she raised her camera and captured the first image of Ruby, frozen forever in that moment of tentative connection. For the next several days, Hannah observed Ruby regularly appearing around the clearing near her cabin. The fox seemed to patrol cautiously, examining the surroundings before retreating silently into the underbrush. Hannah studied her closely, intrigued by Ruby's intelligent caution and grace. Sensing that the approaching winter might make life harder for the delicate creature, she decided to offer some careful assistance. She left small morsels of chicken near the edge of the clearing, far enough away to respect Ruby's wild instincts, but close enough to watch her through a telephoto lens. At first, Ruby's wariness kept her away, allowing other creatures, raccoons and possums, to snatch the offerings. But persistence paid off. Eventually, Hannah witnessed Ruby cautiously approaching, sniffing, then quickly consuming the food. Each subsequent feeding drew the fox slightly closer, building a tentative trust through the steady rhythm of kindness and distance. One evening, after checking her camera traps, Hannah drove her pickup truck toward the edge of her property to inspect an unusual noise, a sputtering engine and frustrated shouts echoing through the quiet valley. Arriving at the boundary separating her land from Maplewood Farm, Hannah encountered Ben Sawyer, the owner, bent over the hood of his ancient red tractor, muttering colorful curses under his breath. Ben Sawyer was in his late 50s, solidly built with broad shoulders earned from years of manual labor on the farm. He had a weathered face, deeply lined and bronzed from sun and wind, and gentle eyes beneath a shock of graying sandy hair. Though his mannerisms were blunt, those who knew Ben understood the warmth and loyalty behind his rough exterior. "Need a hand?" Hannah called, stepping down from her truck, her boots crunching lightly on the gravel. Ben looked up sharply, momentarily startled before his expression softened. "Oh, Hannah, thought you were one of those vultures from Green Estates again," he grumbled, wiping his hands on a rag stained dark with oil and dirt. Hannah had heard whispers of trouble from neighbors about the sprawling luxury developments planned nearby, threatening Maplewood and surrounding farms. "Are they still pressing you to sell?" "Pressing?" Ben scoffed bitterly. "They're practically battering down my door with offers, each more insulting than the last. That farm's been in my family since my great-grandfather bought the land. Lucy and I aren't budging an inch, but they're playing dirty now, dragging lawyers into it." Hannah had met Lucy Sawyer only briefly. The girl was 14, slim and spirited, with bright blue eyes and her father's stubborn jawline, fiercely protective of their family's heritage. Hannah admired their resilience, seeing a reflection of her own determination to guard her solitude and purpose. "I'm sorry, Ben," Hannah said sincerely. "If there's anything I could do, please let me know. I might have left the city behind, but I still know how to fight paperwork battles." Ben chuckled softly, though his eyes remained weary. "Appreciate it, Hannah. Truly, I might take you up on that sooner rather than later." After some coaxing, the tractor finally coughed to life, sputtering in protest as Ben climbed aboard. He tipped his hat in gratitude as he rumbled back toward his barn, leaving Hannah deep in thought. Over the following weeks, Ruby's visits grew more frequent and comfortable. Hannah relished their encounters, which provided her with stunning photographic material and fueled her writing. Yet thoughts of Maplewood Farm lingered persistently. One evening, while studying images of Ruby beneath the dim glow of her desk lamp, Hannah felt compelled to help the Sawyers more directly. The fragile bond she had begun forging with Ruby had reminded her how interconnected everything in this quiet, rugged place truly was: nature, animals, people, and the land itself. Ben and Lucy's struggle resonated deeply, mirroring her own need to preserve and protect the place she'd come to cherish. That night, as snow began to softly blanket the forest around her cabin, Hannah emailed an old friend from her New York days, a journalist with considerable influence in the world of media and environmental activism. She detailed Ben's predicament, hoping to ignite a broader awareness about Maplewood Farm's plight. Meanwhile, Ruby slipped silently from beneath the heavy branches, her sharp amber eyes fixed curiously toward the softly glowing cabin window, before returning cautiously to her hidden den in the shadows of the mountainside, unaware of the pivotal role she was already playing. As December crept quietly into the Catskills, winter tightened its grasp, draping everything in relentless layers of frost and snow. The once verdant trails transformed into a monochrome landscape, stark and silent beneath overcast skies. From the warmth of her cabin, Hannah Mitchell studied the pale morning horizon, sipping her coffee, concern etched clearly in the subtle creases around her eyes. She hadn't seen Ruby for several days, and anxiety gnawed at the edges of her thoughts, intensified by the approaching snowstorm. Venturing outside, Hannah's breath formed delicate clouds in the frigid air as she adjusted her scarf. She made her usual rounds near the clearing where Ruby often appeared. There, fresh in the thin crust of newly fallen snow, she found a delicate set of prints smaller than Ruby's own. Hannah's heart quickened. She knelt closer, examining carefully the pattern distinctively canine, narrow, precise. These tiny footprints told her more clearly than words ever could. Ruby was a mother, her movements now shadowed by a smaller, more fragile companion. Hannah stood, heart heavy with worry. Her bond with Ruby, tenuous yet powerful, had taken on a new urgency. With a storm imminent, she worried for the fox mother and her young, knowing how brutal Catskill winters could become. Determined, Hannah returned inside and prepared additional shelters, small wooden boxes lined with insulating straw and placed discreetly at the edges of her property. Each shelter held carefully measured pieces of food to sustain Ruby and her offspring, without overly domesticating their instincts. Later that morning, Hannah's attention turned toward the looming plight of Maplewood Farm. She'd organized a meeting at the local cafe in nearby Wyndham, the small town just outside the Catskills, to strategize with Ben Sawyer and his daughter Lucy. She drove carefully down winding mountain roads, snowflakes beginning to fall softly from the iron-gray sky. Inside the cozy warmth of the brew house, the local gathering spot famed for strong coffee and stronger opinions, Ben and Lucy already awaited Hannah. Ben looked weary, wrapped in a thick wool jacket, shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible burden. Lucy, however, radiated youthful determination. At 14, she was tall and slender, with cascading dark blonde curls and her father's piercing blue eyes. Her jaw was set with fierce resolve, matured prematurely by the struggles threatening her home. "I'm glad you could make it, Hannah," Lucy greeted earnestly, her youthful voice strong and clear. "We got an uphill battle ahead of us." Hannah admired the girl's spirit, recognizing echoes of her younger self. "Let's get started," Hannah said confidently, spreading notes across their small table. "I reached out to someone who can help, Sam Davenport, a journalist friend of mine from Manhattan. He specializes in community activism and conservation battles." As she spoke, the cafe door chimed softly, admitting a tall, slender man in his early 40s. Sam Davenport entered with an easy stride, immediately scanning the room and offering Hannah a warm, familiar smile. He had short, dark hair, faintly silvered at the temples, keen hazel eyes behind square-framed glasses, and an earnest demeanor softened by a ready smile. "Sam," Hannah greeted, embracing him warmly. "Thank you for coming all this way." "Wouldn't miss it," Sam replied kindly, removing his coat and shaking hands firmly with Ben and Lucy. Community fights like this matter deeply. Over steaming mugs of coffee, the group discussed strategies. Sam's professional yet approachable manner inspired confidence, and soon they outlined a campaign combining local events, social media storytelling, and photography, Hannah's specialty. Lucy eagerly volunteered to manage their online presence, her enthusiasm bringing a spark of energy back to Ben's tired eyes. By midday, they stepped outside into the worsening storm. Snow now fell steadily, heavy flakes obscuring vision and muffling sound. As Hannah bid goodbye to Sam and the Sawyers, she drove cautiously back toward her isolated cabin, the storm quickly escalating into a blinding white fury. That evening, wind howled fiercely around the corners of the cabin, snow piling against windowsills and doorways. Hannah kept the wood stove burning, its reassuring crackle fighting back the storm's chill. She watched anxiously into the darkened woods, thoughts repeatedly drifting to Ruby and the tiny footprints she discovered earlier. The mother fox and her kit were out there somewhere, hidden and vulnerable. Sleep was restless, broken by dreams of dark woods and fragile creatures lost in snowdrifts. At first light, bundled tightly against the bitter cold, Hannah forced open her cabin door, stepping cautiously into the deep snow. The scene before her was surreal. Everything blanketed in pristine whiteness, trees bent under the heavy weight of snow, the clearing utterly silent and still. Heart-pounding, Hannah trudged slowly toward the shelters she'd placed the day before. The first two shelters appeared untouched, food untouched, snow undisturbed. Anxiety tightened its grip until, near the last shelter, relief flooded her. Small, delicate footprints marked fresh paths, Ruby's familiar tracks alongside the tiny prints of her young. Hannah released a grateful breath, tears of relief stinging her eyes. Ruby had survived, as had her precious kit. That afternoon, as the storm finally began to ease, Hannah received a call from Lucy, excited and breathless. "Hannah, Sam's already launched our campaign. We've gotten hundreds of shares already. People really care about Maplewood." Hannah smiled, pride swelling within her. "That's fantastic, Lucy. It's only the beginning. We'll make sure your home is protected." They exchanged hopeful goodbyes, buoyed by their small but significant victory. As evening fell, Hannah again stood outside her cabin, gazing into the quiet woods now bathed in twilight. Snow softly glittered beneath the moonlight, the storm now a gentle memory. A soft rustle drew her attention sharply. A familiar pair of amber eyes stared from the darkness. Ruby emerged slowly, her graceful form illuminated clearly in the dim glow from Hannah's porch. But Ruby was not alone. From behind her emerged a tiny, hesitant shape, a small fox kit, its fur a softer shade of rust and silver, wide eyes gazing curiously toward Hannah. Her breath caught, awed by this intimate trust Ruby now showed, bringing her offspring closer than ever before. "Hello there, little one," Hannah whispered softly, careful not to move suddenly. The fox kit edged forward cautiously, its delicate paws barely disturbing the snow. Ruby watched closely, vigilant but relaxed enough to allow her young this moment of exploration. Standing motionless, Hannah watched, humbled by this precious, fragile connection. Eventually, mother and kit slipped quietly back into the shadows, leaving Hannah alone once more, deeply moved yet strangely comforted. Inside the cabin, the warmth embraced her gently, thoughts drifting between Ruby's new trust and Maplewood's hopeful fight. Both battles intertwined, both equally precious and vulnerable. That night, Hannah felt keenly aware that she was no longer a solitary observer. She had become entwined with the land, its creatures, and the people fighting to protect their shared home. Each step forward marked carefully in the snow, each footprint small but significant. In the aftermath of the fierce storm, a crystalline silence settled over the Catskills, punctuated only by the occasional crack of frozen branches yielding beneath heavy snow. Hannah Mitchell, bundled in a thick woolen sweater, stood by her kitchen window, gazing out onto a world that appeared wrapped in pale cotton. Though relieved the blizzard had passed, unease lingered within her chest, a vague, persistent worry for Ruby and her young offspring. The kettle whistled sharply, pulling her from the reverie. Hannah poured hot water over tea leaves, savoring the familiar aroma that filled her small cabin with warmth. Her mind wandered briefly to the successful social media campaign Sam Davenport had orchestrated, drawing significant attention to Maplewood Farm. Donations were pouring in, and the community had rallied impressively around Ben and Lucy. Yet, Hannah knew their battle was far from over, as the formidable legal team from Green Estates had intensified their efforts, presenting new hurdles nearly every day. Suddenly, a faint scratching sound interrupted her thoughts. Hannah froze, her pulse quickening. Again came the sound, louder, unmistakably emanating from the cabin's porch. Carefully, she set her mug down and moved cautiously toward the door, breath tight in her throat. Opening it slightly, a heart-wrenching sight awaited her. Ruby stood rigidly at the threshold, her thick russet fur matted and damp, her amber eyes locked on Hannah's face, pleading silently. At Ruby's paws lay the tiny fox kit, motionless except for faint, labored breathing. Blood stained its hind leg, the injury fresh and clearly severe. "Oh no, Ruby," Hannah whispered, her voice barely audible through sudden tears. Ruby made no move to flee. She only took a hesitant step backward, watching Hannah intently. Realizing the fox was trusting her entirely, Hannah felt deeply humbled and desperately determined. Knowing every second mattered, Hannah fetched the thick leather gloves and soft towels she kept handy for bird rescues. With slow, deliberate movements, she approached Ruby. The fox growled softly, a primal warning, yet held her ground, showing an extraordinary trust and vulnerability. "It's all right," Hannah murmured gently, her voice calm despite the panic swelling within. Carefully wrapping the injured Kit in the towel, she saw clearly the twisted angle of the tiny leg and the severity of the wound. Ruby's eyes never left Hannah's hands, her body tense with restrained anxiety. As Hannah lifted the fragile bundle, Ruby stepped back further, her plaintive whimpers cutting through the frozen air. "I'll help him, Ruby. I promise," Hannah reassured her softly. With cautious haste, she placed the kit securely into a cardboard carrier box lined with warm blankets. Hannah swiftly dialed the Catskill Wildlife Rescue, a small but respected wildlife rehabilitation center located 40 miles down mountain roads. Her call was answered by Dr. Eleanor Prescott, the head veterinarian, a brisk but compassionate woman in her early 50s with short gray hair, bright, intelligent eyes, and a reputation for her unwavering dedication to local wildlife. "Bring him right away," Dr. Prescott instructed urgently upon hearing the circumstances. Time is crucial. As Hannah prepared for departure, Ruby lingered silently, pacing anxiously on the porch until Hannah carefully loaded the box in her truck and started down the snow-cleared road. In the rearview mirror, Ruby's silhouette stood watchful, gradually diminishing until hidden by the forest shadows. The drive was arduous, the roads icy and treacherous despite recent plowing. Upon arrival at the rescue center, Dr. Prescott swiftly took the injured Kit, immediately disappearing into the treatment room. While anxiously waiting, Hannah met another volunteer, Marcus Blake, a lanky young man of 27 with unruly black curls, wide brown eyes, and an ever-present, easy smile. Marcus exuded a quiet warmth, instantly reassuring Hannah. "I've never seen Ruby trust someone like this before," Hannah confessed, gripping her hands nervously. "You've named the mother fox?" Marcus asked gently, sensing Hannah's emotional connection. "Yes," Hannah admitted softly, feeling suddenly exposed. "I didn't mean to. It just felt right." Marcus smiled knowingly, his eyes kind. "They choose us sometimes. Ruby clearly chose you." After what felt like hours, Dr. Prescott emerged, looking weary but cautiously hopeful. "The fracture was complicated, but we managed to set it successfully. He'll survive, though recovery will be delicate. However, returning him to the wild, that's uncertain." "I promised Ruby," Hannah whispered faintly, feeling a sharp pang of sorrow. Dr. Prescott nodded gently, understanding the weight of Hannah's words. "You gave him his best chance," the veterinarian reassured her firmly. "We'll do everything possible." Returning home later that evening, emotionally drained, Hannah checked her phone to find multiple missed calls from Lucy Sawyer. She immediately returned the call, her pulse quickening at Lucy's troubled voice. "It's gotten worse, Hannah," Lucy explained, voice shaking slightly. "Green Estates sent their top lawyer, Charles Forrester, to confront us today." Hannah felt dread curl in her stomach. She had briefly encountered Charles Forrester once before, an intimidating man in his late 40s, tall and sharply dressed, his silver-streaked hair impeccably combed back and eyes cold as polished steel. Forrester was renowned for ruthless tactics, bending regulations and intimidating smaller landowners into submission. "What happened?" Hannah asked urgently. Lucy took a shaky breath. "Forrester said they're filing a lawsuit challenging our rights to a waterway on the property. Without that water, our farm's worthless. Dad's devastated, Hannah. Tell Ben to hold on. We'll fight this," Hannah assured fiercely, anger and resolve mingling. Ending the call, she immediately dialed Sam Davenport, her voice taut with determination as she updated him on this alarming new tactic. Sam agreed swiftly to escalate the media coverage, highlighting Green Estate's aggressive legal maneuvers, turning public opinion further against the development company. Sleep eluded Hannah that night, anxiety mingling between Ruby's injured Kit and Maplewood's precarious situation. Before dawn, she stood once again at her porch, the quiet woods providing little comfort this time. Suddenly, rustling leaves startled her. Ruby emerged, alone, her expression expectant and solemn. Hannah knelt cautiously, extending a hand slowly. Surprisingly, Ruby approached, stopping mere inches away, gazing intently into Hannah's face, a silent, profound gratitude shimmering in her amber eyes. In that precious moment of connection, Hannah found renewed strength. Despite the complexities and heartache she faced, Ruby's simple yet profound trust reminded her why the battles, both for Maplewood and Ruby's fragile offspring, were worth fighting. They had chosen her, and she would not let them down. As the pale sunrise stretched gently across snow-laden trees, Ruby retreated silently into the misty forest, leaving Hannah alone yet heartened. She knew challenges lay ahead, but the resolve now burning brightly within her felt unshakable, a beacon amidst the uncertainty of winter. The early days of January settled deep into the Catskills, draping the mountains in a serene quietude beneath endless, silver-gray skies. Hannah Mitchell drove down the familiar winding roads, now cleared of snow, toward the Catskill Wildlife Rescue Center, her heart buoyed by cautious optimism and tempered with realistic apprehension. Today was crucial. Today, she would finally see Scout again. Hannah had named the injured fox Kit Scout, inspired by his brave spirit and curious eyes that had quietly stolen her heart the very first moment. Arriving at the center, Hannah felt a comforting warmth amidst the chill air. Dr. Eleanor Prescott met her in the lobby, looking characteristically composed in her spotless white veterinarian's coat. Despite her reserved demeanor, the veterinarian greeted Hannah warmly, sensing the anxiety beneath her calm exterior. "Scout is doing remarkably well, Hannah," Dr. Prescott said reassuringly, guiding her through to the recovery wing. "The surgery was successful, but his rehabilitation will be delicate and lengthy. We still can't promise he'll ever be ready to return to the wild." Hannah nodded, absorbing the bittersweet reality as they approached the enclosure. Scout lay nestled comfortably within a bed of soft hay, his russet fur regaining its healthy shine, his bright, inquisitive eyes fixed immediately on Hannah. At that moment, her resolve strengthened, crystallizing into purpose. No matter the outcome, she would ensure Scout had a life filled with security and dignity. "I want to learn how to care for him myself," Hannah told Dr. Prescott decisively. "If he can't return safely, I'd like to offer him a permanent home." Dr. Prescott smiled approvingly, nodding thoughtfully. "Then you'll need training, certification in wildlife rehabilitation, and proper enclosure construction. It'll be rigorous, but I believe you're fully capable." The following weeks became a whirlwind of commitment. Hannah attended intensive training sessions under the careful guidance of another wildlife expert, Alice Monroe, a practical and meticulous woman in her early 40s, petite yet agile, with dark hair pulled into a severe ponytail and observant brown eyes that missed nothing. Alice's teaching was strict yet compassionate, preparing Hannah for every eventuality with Scout, meticulously detailing dietary needs, behavioral cues, and specialized enclosure design. Meanwhile, Hannah received regular updates from Marcus Blake, the volunteer at the center who maintained an active role in Scout's day-to-day care. Marcus's gentle demeanor and patient attention had become invaluable, earning Scout's trust and easing Hannah's mind considerably. Their conversations, initially formal, gradually softened into genuine camaraderie built upon mutual dedication to wildlife. One afternoon, during a brief coffee break in the center's modest kitchen, Marcus leaned against the counter, his unruly curls partially hidden beneath a knitted beanie, eyes thoughtful. "Have you considered sharing Scout's story publicly? People connect deeply with rescue journeys, especially something as touching as yours and Ruby's." Hannah hesitated briefly. She had always valued her privacy, yet she recognized the potential impact Scout's story might have, particularly in supporting Maplewood Farm's plight. Marcus's suggestion sparked an idea that quickly grew roots within her mind. That evening, she called Lucy Sawyer, proposing an ambitious plan, a photography exhibition featuring her wildlife images, anchored by Scout's poignant rescue story. Lucy responded enthusiastically, immediately organizing volunteers and securing a suitable venue at the Wyndham Community Arts Center, a quaint but respected gallery run by Margaret Sullivan. A dignified older woman with silver hair neatly arranged, sharp blue eyes, and a cultivated taste for compelling local art. Margaret embraced the project wholeheartedly. Your images capture the spirit of this land, Hannah. The community will rally behind Scout's story in Maplewood Farm. With Margaret's encouragement, Hannah's exhibition quickly took shape. She selected her finest photographs, the vibrant life of the Catskills captured in vivid detail. Foxes, deer, owls, and delicate wildflowers frozen in timeless beauty. At the heart of the display was Scout's narrative, carefully documented through a series of emotional images, beginning with Ruby's first hesitant appearance, the tiny footprints in snow, and the critical moments of rescue. Sam Davenport utilized his considerable influence, sharing previews of the exhibition across social media. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Followers and donations flooded Maplewood's fundraising page, bringing hope and renewed energy to Ben and Lucy, despite continued pressure from Green Estate's relentless legal tactics. However, obstacles loomed. Days before the exhibition's opening night, Hannah received an unexpected visit from a representative of Green Estates, a man named Warren Clark, a slender and meticulously groomed individual in his mid-30s, known locally for his polished manners but calculating nature. Clark appeared polite yet cold, his pale blue eyes carrying a thinly veiled threat beneath his professional exterior. "Ms. Mitchell, your efforts are admirable," Clark remarked, his tone deceptively cordial. "But this campaign is complicating matters significantly for everyone involved. Green Estates urges caution. Continued public interference could lead to unforeseen legal consequences." Unintimidated, Hannah met his gaze steadily. "We have a right to protect our community and its heritage. Your threats won't silence us." Clark's lips tightened, but he maintained his composed facade, departing with a stiff nod. Though shaken internally, Hannah refused to waver. Her resolve strengthened, and she threw herself into final preparations, determined the exhibition would succeed, sending a strong message to those seeking to exploit Maplewood's vulnerability. Opening night arrived clear and star-filled, the community center bustling with attendees eager to support both Scout and the Sawyer family. Ben Sawyer, dressed neatly in a rarely worn blazer, looked both proud and moved. Lucy buzzed energetically through the room, interacting enthusiastically with visitors, managing the online streaming of the event for an even broader audience. Hannah watched in amazement as the community embraced Scout's story. Images of Ruby resonated deeply, connecting visitors emotionally to the wildness they cherished. By evening's end, Margaret announced with quiet pride that they had significantly surpassed their fundraising goals, providing critical resources for Ben's legal battle against Green Estates. As the crowds thinned, Marcus appeared quietly beside Hannah, his expression gentle and appreciative. "You did something incredible here," he said softly, gazing around the gallery. Scout's story touched them all. "Ruby deserves the credit," Hannah replied humbly, feeling deeply grateful. "She trusted me first." Returning home late that night, Hannah paused briefly on her porch beneath the cold, starlit sky. Movement caught her eye. A familiar, graceful silhouette emerged from the darkness. Ruby paused at the clearing's edge, her bright amber eyes reflecting moonlight, silently acknowledging Hannah. They exchanged an unspoken understanding born of trust and mutual respect. Then Ruby turned softly into the shadows once again, vanishing with quiet dignity. Inside the cabin, warmth enveloped Hannah like an embrace. Challenges undoubtedly lay ahead. Yet tonight, beneath the quiet stars, fragile hope bloomed brighter than ever, both for Scout's future and for the beloved community she had chosen to fight for. As late January deepened into February, the Catskill Mountains remained under the frosty breath of winter. Snow continued its gentle descent, coating everything in layers of silent, crystalline white. Hannah Mitchell had grown accustomed to the rhythm of daily life that wove seamlessly between the Wildlife Rescue Center, her cabin, and Maplewood Farm's unfolding drama. Scout had become her steady anchor, his recovery strengthening the profound bond between them. But each passing day made clear that a difficult reality loomed ahead. On a clear, cold morning, Hannah visited Scout at the center for another evaluation. Dr. Eleanor Prescott observed the young fox as he energetically explored the indoor enclosure. His once-injured leg healed, though marked by a subtle limp. Scout had grown significantly, his russet coat thick and gleaming, his eyes bright with intelligence and curiosity. But it was precisely this lack of fear and his comfort around humans that concerned Dr. Prescott. "He's thriving physically," Dr. Prescott explained gently, her typically composed expression softened by genuine empathy. "But Scout is now fully habituated to human presence. He can't survive in the wild anymore." The finality in those words felt heavy upon Hannah's heart. She had anticipated this possibility, yet hearing it confirmed still cut deeply. Nonetheless, she had prepared meticulously for this scenario. After weeks of rigorous training with Alice Munro, Hannah had completed her certification as a wildlife rehabilitator, and now the carefully constructed enclosure at her cabin awaited its intended resident. "I understand," Hannah replied softly, meeting Scout's trusting eyes through the mesh barrier. "I'll give him the best home possible." Marcus Blake approached quietly, a reassuring presence throughout this emotional journey. "Scout's lucky to have you," he said gently, standing beside her. His easy manner and steady kindness had become invaluable to Hannah, a friendship forged through shared devotion and quiet understanding. In the days following, Hannah finalized preparations at home. The enclosure she had built was spacious and meticulously designed, nestled comfortably at the forest's edge behind her cabin. It featured natural foliage, large rocks, and hollowed logs to replicate Scout's natural environment as closely as possible. A sheltered den provided warmth and safety, complete with concealed feeding areas to minimize direct human contact and help maintain some of Scout's wild instincts. Meanwhile, the exhibition continued making waves, its success beyond Hannah's wildest hopes. Margaret Sullivan, the curator at Wyndham Community Arts Center, proudly reported unprecedented visitor numbers and community donations, confidently declaring that the funds raised had surpassed the amount required to mount a robust legal defense for Maplewood Farm. Ben and Lucy Sawyer had become local symbols of resilience, their plight capturing attention far beyond the Catskills region. However, beneath this triumph lurked a darker reality. Green Estates, unwilling to concede defeat, swiftly escalated their legal strategy. Hannah received urgent news from Lucy one bitterly cold afternoon. A hearing had been scheduled earlier than expected, and the firm's attorneys intended to force a rapid decision regarding the contested waterway, rights crucial to Maplewood Farm. The courtroom was crowded when Hannah arrived, tension thick in the stale air of the municipal courthouse. Charles Forrester, Green Estate's lead attorney, dominated the room with his imposing figure and cold authority, his sharp suit immaculate, as always, gray eyes devoid of warmth or compassion. Beside him sat an unfamiliar assistant, Lauren Price, a young associate attorney, slender and sharply dressed, with short dark hair and eyes that held a surprising depth of uncertainty beneath her professional composure. Lauren appeared uncomfortable, often glancing nervously toward Forrester as he systematically dismantled Ben's claim to the critical water source. Lucy gripped her father's hand tightly, eyes bright with defiance despite the daunting odds. Hannah sat directly behind them, her presence a silent yet steady support. As Forrester continued his arguments, Hannah noticed Lauren Price shift slightly, her discomfort visibly increasing. During a brief recess, Hannah found herself alone briefly outside the courtroom. Surprisingly, Lauren approached cautiously, her professional facade momentarily slipping to reveal genuine remorse. "I'm sorry about this," Lauren whispered hesitantly, glancing around nervously. "I didn't sign up to ruin lives." Hannah studied her briefly, sensing sincerity in her conflicted gaze. "Then help us," Hannah urged softly but firmly. "You don't have to follow blindly." Lauren hesitated, clearly torn. "I can't openly defy him yet," she admitted reluctantly, her voice barely audible. "But Forrester's rushing this hearing deliberately, knowing your legal team hasn't had sufficient time. You need to push for an adjournment, demand more preparation time. It's your best chance." Before Hannah could respond, Lauren abruptly stepped back, quickly resuming her impassive expression as Forrester reemerged from the courtroom. Hannah absorbed this unexpected advice carefully, recognizing the courage Lauren had shown in offering it. When the hearing resumed, Ben's attorney, a determined, fiercely intelligent woman named Rebecca Grant, tall with auburn hair pulled neatly into a bun, sharply dressed and commanding attention, boldly challenged the accelerated schedule. Utilizing Lauren's subtle guidance, Rebecca convincingly argued that adequate preparation was necessary to ensure fair proceedings. Though clearly displeased, the judge eventually conceded, granting an adjournment and effectively slowing Green Estate's aggressive advance. Returning home later that evening, Hannah felt simultaneously exhausted and invigorated by the day's small victory. As she stood on her porch beneath a tranquil, star-studded sky, she heard a soft rustling nearby. Ruby emerged silently from the trees, her quiet presence now comfortingly familiar. The fox paused briefly, eyes meeting Hannah's in quiet understanding, gratitude resonating clearly between them. Hannah knew this bond, this unlikely friendship forged through trust and compassion, had guided her courageously through these tumultuous weeks. Inside her cabin, Hannah settled by the fire, reflecting deeply on the crossroads they all faced. Scout's permanent home was nearly complete, Maplewood Farm still stood defiant, and a new ally within Green Estates provided unexpected hope. Each of these paths had converged through chance and choice, leading Hannah inexorably toward this critical turning point, a destiny shaped equally by courage, compassion, and connection. Outside, Ruby slipped silently back into the shadows of the forest, leaving behind the quiet serenity of the snow-covered clearing. Both had chosen their paths carefully, each aware of the fragile hope they protected, bound by the profound trust now woven firmly between their two worlds. The first gentle whispers of spring began breathing life back into the Catskill Mountains. Snow melted into icy rivulets, and the muted earth slowly awoke beneath pale patches of green. Hannah Mitchell stood on her porch, savoring the cool March air that carried subtle hints of renewal. Today marked an important day, a culmination of months spent tirelessly working and hoping. Today, Scout was finally coming home. She drove carefully down the winding roads toward the Catskill Wildlife Rescue Center, her heart a mix of excitement and quiet reflection. Scout had transformed from a fragile kit into a healthy young fox, strong and spirited, yet forever marked by human kindness. Hannah knew he could never return fully to the wild, but she was determined to offer him a fulfilling, protected life. Upon arrival, Dr. Eleanor Prescott and Marcus Blake awaited Hannah. Scout nestled securely within a specialized travel crate. Marcus carried the crate gently, his usually bright eyes touched with bittersweet emotion. He had grown fond of Scout, yet knew the fox belonged now with Hannah, the woman who had first offered him hope and compassion. "Take good care of him," Marcus said softly, placing the crate carefully into Hannah's truck. "I promise I will," Hannah reassured warmly. "You're welcome anytime to visit." The drive home was quiet yet deeply meaningful. Scout remained calm in his crate, watching Hannah attentively through a mesh-covered opening. Pulling into her driveway, Hannah carried the crate to Scout's new enclosure, gently opening the door. Scout hesitated briefly, sniffing the air curiously, before stepping out onto fresh, soft earth. He moved cautiously at first, exploring his spacious new home filled with logs, hiding spots, and comfortable dens. As twilight descended gently over the clearing, Hannah noticed a familiar presence emerging quietly from the forest's edge. Ruby stood silently, her elegant silhouette clearly recognizable against the fading light, amber eyes watching the enclosure with profound intensity. Slowly, Scout approached the fence, meeting his mother's gaze with equal curiosity. Hannah watched breathlessly, deeply moved by this silent reunion. Ruby stepped closer, sniffing carefully through the fencing, her body relaxed despite the separation. After several minutes, Ruby lay calmly nearby, quietly accepting this arrangement, understanding that her offspring was safe. Days turned into weeks, and Ruby's visits became regular but respectful, maintaining a dignified distance while keeping a watchful eye over Scout. The young fox adapted beautifully, comfortable yet retaining enough wildness to remain playful and alert. Hannah found immense joy watching Scout flourish, his presence a constant reminder of her meaningful bond with nature. In parallel to Scout's homecoming, the battle for Maplewood Farm reached its decisive turning point. The postponed hearing finally arrived, filled with tension and cautious optimism. Lauren Price, the young attorney who previously helped Hannah discreetly, was noticeably absent, replaced by a visibly irritated Charles Forrester, whose confidence appeared rattled. Rebecca Grant, Ben Sawyer's attorney, delivered a persuasive argument, presenting a meticulously researched proposal that stunned the court. Maplewood Farm qualified unequivocally as a historical heritage site. Hannah, Ben, Lucy, and Sam Davenport had worked tirelessly gathering evidence to support the heritage claim. Old photographs, historical documents, and emotional testimonial from the community poured forth compellingly. Margaret Sullivan passionately described the farm's deep cultural significance, emphasizing its irreplaceable historical value. Witness after witness testified powerfully, turning public sentiment decisively in Maplewood's favor. The City Council deliberated briefly before unanimously voting to designate Maplewood Farm as a protected historical landmark, effectively halting Green Estate's development project. Applause erupted spontaneously, an emotional release that resonated deeply within Hannah and the Sawyer family. Outside the courthouse, a familiar figure approached Hannah quietly. Lauren Price looked remarkably different, her severe lawyerly attire replaced by casual clothing, dark hair loosely framing her thoughtful face. "I resigned," Lauren said simply, offering Hannah a relieved smile. "I couldn't stand behind what they were doing anymore. Your courage inspired me." Hannah embraced her warmly, recognizing Lauren's bravery and integrity. "You did the right thing. Thank you." That evening, a celebratory gathering occurred at Maplewood Farm. Ben, visibly lighter, laughed openly for the first time in months, his rugged face softened by gratitude. Lucy, energized and hopeful, eagerly discussed future projects with local volunteers. The farm buzzed with newfound possibility, a testament to community resilience and determination. Sam Davenport documented the event warmly, his articles and social media updates spreading the inspiring story far and wide. The farm's future seemed brighter than ever, a beacon of what dedicated individuals could achieve together. Returning home later beneath the expansive night sky, Hannah felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Standing quietly outside Scout's enclosure, she noticed Ruby waiting calmly in her usual spot nearby. Scout lay peacefully within his den, his breathing gentle and rhythmic. Ruby's amber eyes briefly met Hannah's, communicating silent gratitude and acceptance before the fox gracefully disappeared into the night shadows. Inside the cabin, Hannah sat beside her fireplace, heart full. She reflected quietly on the journey that had led her here, from loss and solitude to newfound community, meaningful friendships, and an enduring bond with nature. Each challenge overcome, each victory achieved, had transformed her life profoundly. As spring fully arrived, Hannah resumed her photography with renewed passion, chronicling the Catskills' vibrant rebirth. Scout flourished, forever safe within Hannah's protective sanctuary, his days playful and fulfilling. Ruby lived free, yet always close, a wild guardian watching over the life she entrusted to Hannah. Maplewood Farm thrived, now secure in its historic status. Lucy planned community gardening programs and educational tours, eager to share the farm's legacy widely. Ben, though gruff as ever, now radiated quiet pride in their collective triumph. Hannah's life settled into peaceful rhythm, rooted firmly in the natural world she cherished deeply. Scout's presence filled her days with purpose, his playful antics bringing laughter and joy. Each evening, Ruby visited, a reassuring reminder of the trust they had forged. On a warm April afternoon, Marcus Blake visited, delighted by Scout's progress and the sanctuary Hannah had created. They walked leisurely through budding trails, discussing wildlife conservation, their friendship deepening naturally through shared values and quiet companionship. As daylight softened into evening, Hannah paused, gazing around thoughtfully. Everything, the forest, the cabin, Scout's sanctuary, Maplewood Farm, felt perfectly aligned, each part essential in the delicate tapestry of her life. Destiny, she realized quietly, had guided her gently yet purposefully toward home, a place defined not only by physical boundaries, but by meaningful connections, shared victories, and profound harmony with nature. Standing quietly in the peaceful dusk, Hannah felt gratitude flood her heart. She had lost much in her journey, but had ultimately gained far more. Scout had a safe haven, Ruby lived freely yet close, and Maplewood Farm stood secure, its legacy preserved forever. Returning inside, she lit the fireplace, the crackling warmth symbolizing comfort, peace, and hope. Outside, night embraced the Catskills gently, a quiet assurance of renewal and continuity. She was finally home. In the gentle tale of Hannah, Ruby, and Scout, we see how trust, compassion, and courage can heal wounds and transform lives. Sometimes, life places unexpected paths before us, challenging us to open our hearts and stand bravely against injustice. Like Hannah, each of us can find ways to protect and cherish the precious gifts that surround us every day, whether it's nature, our families, or our community. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone you love. Leave a comment below about a moment when compassion made a difference in your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this. May God bless you and keep you safe always. Comment amen if you believe in the power of kindness and grace.